Hello and welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast. 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald, and joining me is team reporter Lindsay Pilares. Faithful, it's game day. Lindsay, what's it like out in Vegas right now?
It's a lot hotter than it was when we left the Bay Area yesterday. It very much feels like peak summer. I know the Bay Area gives us kind of a mix of whether it wants to be summer or a little bit overcast. Yeah, it's full on desert heat right now. But we've got a lot of time before game kickoff. It's 7 o'clock tonight. So everybody get ready. This is the preseason finale. And then after that, like we are very much inching closer to regular season football, which is what I know a lot of people, including myself, are very much looking forward to.
Yes, but the preseason is fun. It's a time where the teams could really experiment, try new things, and just see what they've got before leading into the regular season. So I'm curious, with the preseason finale happening tonight, what are some of the 49ers goals for tonight's contest? What are they looking for out of this last time before the regular season begins?
You're exactly right, Brie. I think this is the last opportunity, last live game reps for a lot of the players on the roster that are hoping to make a case for themselves to make that 53-man roster. Tonight's the night, right? You're going to get the opportunity to be under the bright lights, show what you've got, show what you've learned, show what you've been working on. Depending on how much time you had in the 49ers system during training camp and the preseason. Like you mentioned, for the 49ers, it's a chance to experiment how different groups of players work in different lineups. And then also, it's just a great time for veterans who may play tonight based on what we heard from head coach Kyle Shanahan to get some reps just to ramp up to the regular season. Very unlikely that we'll see all of the starters out there taking a substantial amount of reps, but I think the working plan, and that all depends on how Kyle Shanahan felt the practices went this week, is to get the starters out there for some reps. That was his plan going into the Saints game last weekend, and we still saw a number of veteran expected starters not suit up. That could very well be the case today. So we'll definitely be updating you on who actually suits up, takes the field, and puts in a little work today. It's always a very strategic decision from the coaching staff on how to maneuver that.
Yeah, so with the chance of some starters playing in this game, similar to last week, when then also these rookie players and younger players, like you said, are trying to make the team. Lindsay, who's on your radar? Who are some players the faithful need to be keeping their eye on in tonight's game?
This isn't a specific player, but I would keep an eye on the 49ers punt returner position because a couple players have already had their opportunity to log some significant reps during the preseason. We saw wide receiver Trent Taylor be tested at the punt returner position against the Titans, and then it was rookie fourth round pick Jacob Cowing against the Saints. Over the course of training camp, we saw Ronnie Bell take a number of practice reps at punt returner position. I'm interested to see who gets that third and final outing of substantial reps at the punt returner spot, because I know that is a position to keep an eye on and a position that hasn't been decided up to this point. I think another interesting spot to look at is right guard. We've seen Dominic Pooney, the rookie third round pick, make back-to-back starts in the preseason. So I think for him, it's more about just stacking the games, stacking the success. He has yet to surrender a sack during his preseason outings. He's played, I believe, 65 snaps at that position. So just continuing to see him grow and develop. Obviously, he's very, very early in his pro career. I think an obvious one as well. Take a look at the quarterback position behind Brock Purdy, right? You've got three players. Obviously, the backup position looks like it's going to be between Joshua Dobbs and Brandon Allen. But again, Tanner Mordecai did get a quarter of work in the last preseason game. We didn't get any end details as to how that workload is going to be split up tonight. But again, it could be another opportunity for all three of those players to shine, see what they can do within the 49ers system. And so plenty more to come there. I mean, you could really virtually go to almost any position group and say that there's, one or two spots up for grabs. So definitely there's a lot of position battles just for generally to make that 53-man roster.
Yeah, speaking of positions to focus on, with positional battles comes roster decisions, and those decisions are coming up pretty soon for the 49ers. So I'm curious, how much will this final preseason game influence those decisions?
I think it does very much matter, right? There's, like I mentioned, a number of positions that are still up for grabs. Maybe the depth chart there is still being decided. This is going to be a huge factor in that because, again, this is just a ramping up towards the regular season. So, third and final preseason game gives you an opportunity to show how you can perform in live game action, right? You can, definitely take away things that are happening in practice, things that the players are doing well, but it's that happens against your own team. You're very familiar with each other, very familiar what's going to happen on the other side of the ball. This is against, a team that doesn't have your full playbook. So I definitely think that these are valuable reps. And yeah, I do believe that this is going to play a factor in some of the decisions that are coming next week for that 53-man roster.
Yeah, it's really interesting to talk about these positional battles, but honestly, I feel like the biggest one of the offseason has been that backup quarterback competition and how that's been shaping up over the preseason. So we've got 2 games in the bag, one more to go tonight. Lindsay, what have been your key takeaways from the performance of the quarterbacks throughout this entire preseason slate?
Yeah, so I would say that well, we've definitely seen a lot of workload from the quarterbacks behind Brock Purdy. You also have to keep in mind that for the Titans game, you really didn't have a ton of starters out there. And then it was a little bit of a mixed bag of starters during that second Saints game. I'm curious to see the pieces around these quarterbacks. But I think generally we've seen a lot of good things from Josh Dobbs. I think that second game against the Saints was a pretty good outing for him. He led 3 scoring drives, and we saw back to back flips into the end zone for a touchdown for him. He seems to be settling into the 49ers offense pretty well. For Brandon Allen, again, would have had one of his drives end in a field goal. Unfortunately, the kick didn't work out. But again, just seeing how these players can continue to just integrate themselves in the 49ers offense. Obviously, Brock Purdy gets a bulk of the reps during training camp practices, but these are super valuable, and you got to do what you can with what you get in these games. And then again, we saw Tanner Mordecai get an entire quarter of work, and who knows what will happen tonight. If he does get that same amount of workload, then he'll have his fair share of reps to see what he can put out there with the 49ers offense. But for Brandon Allen, this is his second year in the system. He knows the playbook, has mentioned how he feels more comfortable in it. We haven't had an opportunity to speak to Tanner Mordecai. But again, he looked like he was confident out there, and definitely didn't hesitate to rip the ball. So I think all good things from all three of those guys. I think it's just getting that depth chart behind him decided, and we'll definitely see more tonight.
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to watch, which backup quarterback gets the most playing time in tonight's contest and how that will influence the team's decision leading into the regular season. But here's head coach Kyle Shanahan on that backup quarterback competition.
Last year, you declared your backup quarterback before the last preseason game. Where do you stand now with that?
It's kind of like what you guys see. They're pretty tight, so I'm definitely not declaring it now. Hopefully they'll play out more in these 2 practices and hopefully a little bit more in the game.
All right, faithful, that will do it for today. Tune into tonight's preseason finale against the Las Vegas Raiders. Kickoff is at 7 p.m. tonight, so you can watch the game on KPIX5, NFL Network, and the official 49ers app. So subscribe for more 49ers updates and turn on the notifications for any breaking news, Move the Chains episodes. Thanks for tuning in.